Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Inspiring Founders. So my name is Michael Ashley. Everyone calls me MASH, like mashed potatoes and gravy, and I'm here today with serial entrepreneur and investor Tom Shen and someone who we call, or he calls, Boba. So we'll find out a little bit more about him, but he's AKA to me, Pop. So there's an interesting conversation here that I want to uncover, and it has to do with some of the companies that Tom has started and built and grown and successfully exited, creating, inspirational stories for all of us, and also kind of like how this guy here got wrapped into it all, and what kind of value he added to the journey. So first, before we get started, Tom and Boba, Pop, can you just introduce yourself to our friends and let them know kind of just a little bit about your background, who you are, and then Pop, you can say a few things, and then I'll jump in with some questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Mash.
All right.
Let's see. Tom Shen, immigrant, came to this country when I was 14. College dropout, Bob's big boy, cook, manager, learned how to hack code. Worked for a couple different companies that happened to be in the financial services space. Started my own company really by accident at 25. I didn't have a great business, I didn't know what a business thesis was, and was able to surround myself with brilliant people that carried me across the finish line. And from that point on, I've had the great pleasure of being involved in numerous companies from early stage through Series A, Series B, what we think of Series A, B, and C today, through exits. I'm blessed to have 3 exits as an operator and 6 other exits as a board member, early stage investor. And today, I sold my last company in 2018. And so I've been sort of retired for 8 years. And today, I sit on 3 fintech company boards, involved in some early stage investing, work also with some private equity companies, and play a lot of bad golf.
That's awesome. I love it. And maybe we can get to it at some point too, because I loved playing golf with you today. It was fantastic, a lot of fun. But we did drag this guy out on the golf course. So tell us who you are and what role you play in this tiny little adventure.
Tiny. I play a tiny role, but my name's Bob Ashley. I'm here with 2 important people in my life, my son and my boss friend, pal, and former tennis partner for about 20 years. And I'm a tech guy who does software. And fortunately, I fell in with the right group and was able to work with two significant fintech companies, and actually 3, and what a blessing it's been, and a joy to be involved.
Awesome, that's awesome. So you mentioned something you mentioned something in your intro that I just want to touch on first, because you said surround yourself with great people. Mm-hmm. And I think first of all, with a lot of the students I work with and the university students, and they are trying to build startups and they're trying to think about how they can do it and what team they need. Can you first tell me a little bit about where this, why surround yourself with smart people, or what does that really mean to you? Can you just kind of give us a little bit more explanation around this idea about your team and the people you surround yourself with, and why is that so important? Because it's easy today to say, hey, my buddy in engineering said he can do it, and my friend in marketing said he could do it, and they're going to get together and they're going to build a startup.
Yeah. I think, Mash, what I'm going to share, much of it is retrospective of having experienced the journey, if you interviewed me 20 years ago, I might have said something different, is the experience of the years, the formation of that, and trying to codify some of the things that I've learned. And I think at the heart of it all, of being an entrepreneur, it is my personal opinion that one trait is most important. It's a word that's not often used in our community today, and probably thought poorly of, actually, okay, is this word humility. I believe that the heart of an entrepreneur starts with humbleness. Because something very simple and quite selfish, which is when you're the dumbest guy in the room, you win because you learn the most.
Yeah.
So if you start from that point of view and you learn humility, some of us are born, some of us have to work at it, right? Some combination of that. And humility helps you listen. And if you listen, you have a chance to learn something. You don't always learn something, but you have a chance to. And the way I practice that in my life is don't always be the first to speak. Take notes when you sit in a meeting. Learn one thing. Just learn one thing in the meeting. Walk away learning one thing. Ask questions. I had an old boss who said, answers, everybody's got one. Sometimes, and we've all worked with people like that, they got two or three. But questions are the key. Learn to ask the right question. Then you learn. So to me, when you have a heart of humility, you have a chance to attract top talent, because top talent want to work with people who are willing to listen to you and take action. And so I think that's where it starts, humility. Then it's about talent. Surround yourself with talent. Now, I'll quickly jump in two pieces of talent.
Okay.
To attract good talent requires vision casting. So you have to have a vision, and you have to have the ability to articulate that, share with others. The second piece of that, to retain talent, is to build a great culture. People want to stay. So let me pause there.
Yeah. That's amazing. And actually, what it reminds me of is a lot of founders have told me things like they feel like they need to be the smartest. They don't say they need to be the smartest person, but like it's almost like in leadership, it's the opposite of what you said. It's like, to be a leader, I need to actually show a lot of, that I'm super smart and that people have all, they want to follow me and they want to do what I say and everything. It's like, it's almost the opposite of what you said with humility.
Well, I think that's true in life, right? I think a friend of mine uttered one time, common sense isn't so common. It's sort of the idea that the first shall be last. You win by losing. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
We fail into success. Often when you talk to successful entrepreneurs, they start their story with a big failure.
I got a lot of those.
Exactly. We all have a lot of those. It's whether you learn from that and whether you learn the right thing from that.
You talk about humility, and I want to bring Pop into the conversation, because I remember growing up and Pop used to say, how can you be humble when you're as great as I am? And I was like, whoa, okay, you know. I knew that. I
But
knew
this was on tennis, though, right?
Yeah, I know. That's part of his sense of humor. But it does bring me into, because you hired him at some point into one of your startups, into one of your companies.
Yeah.
You at some point came to a reasoning around this guy to where you said, you know, I trust him, or I want him to be, you know, part of this group. I want him to be around me and all this stuff. Can you, if it's okay, if you feel like it, can you share a little bit about those days when you know, maybe first met him and hired him, and why did you hire him? What was your company at? What sort of stage were you at? What were you needing? What were you looking for employees and building either the culture or the talent or, you know, this kind of stuff? And you saw this guy and somewhere along the line you put a bet on him and said, yeah, I want him to be part of my thing.
Yeah, very simple, right, Michael? Very simple. Bob was introduced to me with a very strong background in the product set that we were building at the time. He had worked for a company for several years, building a proprietary system, but from a function feature perspective, very similar to ours. What we were building at that time was an open system versus on a proprietary operating system. And the first thing that impressed me about Bob is that he has a can-do spirit. This can be done. I won't be defeated. So this idea of tenacity and a desire to succeed, regardless of the odds, we will reach the finish line. And so I think that was the first thing that attracted me about Bob and his candidacy to work at our company. I think the second piece was culture. You know, I often talk about culture and retaining people. Often people misunderstand culture as that a company has a set of culture and we bring in people to fit that culture. That's not true. A company has a set of culture. You build a set of culture that is featured and modeled after the founder. However, every person you bring in should add to that culture and make that culture richer. The culture needs to be better and richer than the founder.
Wow.
Because if you can't do that, then what happens when a founder makes a mistake? Then the whole company goes down. You need people alongside who can say, hey, look, brother, I know you really believe that, but let me show you why that's wrong. And if you had a culture that can do that, then it's bigger and better than the founder or founding group.
Yeah.
And what impressed me about Bob was that he was he is the kind of individual that he will speak his mind plainly, but kindly, and share it with you in a way that will be easy to accept. And I realized that he would be somebody that not only fit into the culture, but add to the culture, enrich the culture. And I hate to say this, but I was right. And you were with SDI for how many years?
23.
23 years. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
23 years. And you know what the beauty of it is? And for your listeners, I was with the company. I founded the company. I was a company for a hair less than 20 years. I didn't quite make it to 20. And I sold the company, and Bob continued to stay and led part of the development team of a product that lived on for another 10, 15 years.
Right.
Right?
Still doing consulting on that product.
To this day.
To this day.
Unbelievable. And we sold that company in 2001. This is my goodness, 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
25 years later. So unbelievable legacy, right?
Yeah.
But all because of character, right? All because of character that led to a good product, a foundationally good product that continues to run today.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'll just say that part of the culture was that everybody who's going to work for the company, from the bottom to the top, was going to get interviewed by Tom.
Uh-huh.
Every one of them could tell you the story about going in to talk to Tom and the questions he would ask, and they would never be. There were people who were technical who just couldn't grasp that he isn't asking me about can I code this and can I do this and can I do that. Instead, Tom would ask a question, and I've heard from different people because everybody tells the story about when they went to have their interview with Tom, and Tom would say, "So, let's say we hire you, and you go along for a few years and everything. What do you really want to do?" And for most people, they actually, they got around to where they could answer that question. For a few people, it was like, he's not asking me a technical question. I don't know what to say. But Tom would ask that question of one person, and there was always something about going to your heart, and that was the thing. And to this day, I consider, I worked with Tom for all these years and everything, and my goal in life, I realized as I looked at what my strengths were, what I could do, how I could contribute to a business, and I would think about it, and I wanted to produce for him something that, well, it was not for him, it was for all of us.
Yep.
And it was just exciting to be part of that process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the culture was fun.
Yeah.
But not without lots of hard work.
Yeah. Can we kind of take a tangent on this, because I this is really interesting to me. A lot of the people I interview are the founders. So we get these founders, and they tell about their vision and their genesis story and all these other things, but not how important kind of the culture is and the team and those kinds of things. How important is it in entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial spirit to understand your role in entrepreneurship? That not everyone who joins a startup needs to be the founder, the visionary. Like that, there's huge strengths in understanding how you fit in and how you play, what roles you play. Like, did you purposefully try to put these pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together that way?
Michael, I in the beginning, I did not, because I didn't understand what I was doing. But as the years went by, and I looked back, and I realized somehow that piece of it was in my DNA. And let me share a couple funny stories along the way, and Bob would really appreciate this. So when I look back, I realized that even when I was a little boy, playing G.I. Joe with the neighborhood kids, I would play out in my mind that me and Mike against Bob and Jim. I think that's a pretty fair team. I think we win 9 out of 10 times. Okay? But we'd come close, and it would be fun because Mike and I, we would work well together. Right? It's that idea of looking at somebody across the room and somebody gets it. It's the nonverbal communication of leadership, right? And I also realized, and I later proved it to myself because I wondered about that, is can Tom Shen be a good number 2 as well? Are you just good at number 1? Can you be a good number 2? But I remember playing G.I. Joe. If I thought Michael was the most talented of the 4 boys in the room that we're going to team up, I'll be Michael's number 2.
Yeah.
And we'll win. It's okay. Right? And so I look back years later to understand what was my training ground for thinking this way.
Yeah.
Right? So fast forward and Bob, you really enjoy this one, is so the first company that I built, quite by accident, completely by accident, called Software Dynamics. We call it SDI for short, Software Dynamics Inc. And Bob was part of that journey, among other journeys, but part of that journey for 23 years. And we were a basketball company. And we played basketball 4 days out of 5. Okay? 12-1, we rented a neighborhood community gym, air conditioned, okay, in Chatsworth, at Chatsworth Park. And we go out there, and my executive assistant's job was to get us an even number. We go 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, we run full court, didn't matter, okay? But it had to be even number because it was problematic, it was odd.
Yeah.
Okay? And years later, I would talk to my EA, you know, after we moved on or whatnot, and she'd go, man, that was just hard. I had to call somebody at their desk and say, I know you got a big project coming up, but Tom's short one, and you got to play today.
No way.
And it, honest to God truth,
I
right?
remember that.
It was so fun. We used to go do that. And so one day, we're out playing ball, and I'll introduce a character in here that we may touch upon. This gentleman's name is Nick. He was our head of sales, and in many ways, a great, great mentor for me. So many things I do and say, I refer back to how Nick had taught me these things. He had worked for us. I gave him a percentage of the company, and when we had an exit, it set him up for life. And Nick loved to play basketball. He was a big boy. You know, he's 6'2". He was a linebacker from Harvard. And so we would go play basketball. So one day on the ride back to the office, a disgruntled player in the car said, damn that Tom. You know, he just sets up the team every day where he always wins. And I was driving, and I didn't want to say anything. And Nick turned around and stared at the fella and said, you know how hard it is to set up the team to always win 11-9? Do you know how hard that is? And everybody in the car roared with laughter.
Exactly right.
But anyway, all kidding aside, but that's part of team building, right? Is to bring in the right teammates. It's that old get the right people on the bus, but more importantly, get them in the right seats, right? Putting them in the right seats. Colin said right seats is so important. And so many times we've had teammates where they're really good at one thing, but they want to be another. And if you can't convince them that this is their best role for the company, the greatest contribution for the team, okay, then they should move on, and you should help them move on.
We'd have people who came to interview for jobs and stuff, and they had all the right credentials.
Yeah.
And so many times they'd either start, or before they started, they just realized
It just wasn't
this
enough.
isn't the right place. It was a great place, but it wasn't the right place for them.
Wow.
And that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's okay. I have people, and I can name them. I have people that's worked for our various companies, and that at some point it wasn't right. We sit them down, we talk them through, we take care of them financially, we set them up, and we help them move on. And to this day, I'm dear, dear friends with them because they went to the next place and they were hugely successful.
That's awesome. Before I go to, because I think what you're bringing up is a really important topic that I want to dive further into. And I was talking with you earlier about this last night, actually. We were talking about EQ versus IQ. And you said, like, you know, some of what you do was really in your DNA early on. But before we get there, though, actually, I wanted to ask, when did you know you were the right fit for this company? Because I know you came in, you interviewed, you did your things. I'm sure you were ready to just sit down, put your head down, and just do your work like you'd been doing for the last 23 years or whatever it was. Like, when did you know, like, this is something special. Like there's something weird going on here at SDI. Yeah.
I had been laid off,
Uh-huh.
and I'd never been laid off before, and I was very frustrated because I got 3 days in and I hadn't gotten a phone call from anybody to be interviewed. I was shocked. Turned out there was an employee at SDI who I knew from previous company. He called me. I was able. So I went in, I think the next day, and fortunately was able to get in and talk to Tom right away.
Uh-huh.
I didn't necessarily have all the skills that were necessary, the particular skills. There was a language thing going on and so on. But Tom and I went, the normal interview is maybe, 20 minutes, half an hour or whatever. And I think I was in Tom's office for about 4 hours.
Oh, no way.
And at that point, and quite frankly, everything, it was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know there was another company that does exactly what we do that's probably closer to my home than my previous job. This is fantastic. This company is perfect and everything. Talked to Tom about it, found out we know where all the bodies were buried. We know all people in common. He knows all the people from the old company because he has connections everywhere, knows everybody. And then, but the thing that just sealed it for me, I looked up on the wall and there was a psalm that was hung on the wall there. And I said, Lord, that's it. I know I'm supposed to be here. That was it.
That's so cool.
And 23 years later, that's what I do.
And a million stories, I'm sure. We won't get to any of them, but they have to do with basketball and tennis and now golf and I'm sure that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
But getting back to EQ and IQ, would it be accurate to potentially say there's IQ and here's EQ? Is it like that clean cut? Can you kind of explain what is EQ and IQ, first of all, for people and what these words mean and how you look at them?
Well, IQ really is just, for me, the notion of intellectual firepower, right?
Yeah.
Is just the ability to understand things and solve problems the most direct way, right? Sometimes people use words like quick study and so on and so forth, right? It's the ability to comprehend something very quickly, understand it fully, abstract additional thoughts from that understanding, right? So that's IQ. With the advent today and really just moving at light speed, artificial intelligence, it sort of lessens maybe a little bit, there may be listeners who disagree with this, lessens the importance of IQ as much in that you can find out almost anything very, very quickly, anything you don't know very quickly. Whereas EQ, defined as sort of emotional quotient, is the ability, first of all, to manage your own emotions. A lot of times people think of EQ as being able to read the room and be able to understand emotional factors of others. But as a wise man said one time, before you can walk a mile in someone else's shoes, you got to take off your own first. So it's important that you understand your own set of emotions, of which colors the entire room, filter that out, then you can get closer to the truth of the emotions of the people around the table. I feel like today, more than ever, EQ is super, super important in the marketplace of life. That how is it we understand how the other person is feeling through a situation allows us to get to a good outcome. So I believe, especially in entrepreneurship, where you're building a company, and most often your most valuable assets are your people, your ability to communicate, your ability to motivate, your ability to create a culture and some form of loyalty to the cause of the company requires EQ.
The follow-on to that, I think, is people today are going to say, well, AI is going to create people-less companies. We don't need people anymore. What's your take on that? Do you think that's true, or do you think that there's a subset of companies that will happen to? One of the things that came up last night when we were talking is the difference between a lifestyle business and an enterprise, a venture, fundable company. And it might be worth it at least just kind of exploring that just a little tiny bit to understand what kinds of companies really need people versus potentially are there companies in the future that just don't have people? Yeah. What do you see that? How do you see that?
Yeah, I honestly haven't studied much about that in terms of the impact on human beings from an AI perspective, in terms of job creation, in terms of value creation. So if we move in a direction where in the future solopreneurs can create value by themselves without a lot of teammates, then EQ would become less important. But I suspect that in the marketplace of life, even if that's true, a solopreneur would be involved in sales activities that would require interaction with another human being.
Yeah.
Right? So I would tend to think the need for strong EQ would be even more important.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In talking earlier, you said, when you were playing G.I. Joe, you could start to see that was sort of in your DNA, right?
Yeah.
It was already there.
Yeah.
Was there anything upon reflection over the years where you kind of said, it developed this way? Like maybe you can help somebody who doesn't have EQ say, there are a few ways you can develop EQ. It doesn't have to be an inherent trait. You don't have to be born with it. And if you're not born with it, you're kind of screwed. Is there anything that somebody could do who maybe potentially has lots of IQ, but not a lot of EQ, sort of, how can they practice getting more EQ?
I think, one of the things that I actually think that in the tech industry we've done a good job with is real-time mentorship. A lot of times, a lot of programs like yours and others I've been involved with pair up an entrepreneur with a more seasoned leader as a mentor. And I've seen that work. And I've had the good fortune of working with many leaders over the years where I help them develop that side of the brain, if you will, or that side of the heart, to sort of being able to read the room better, be able to think through. I think often a framework's helpful, and so when I'm challenged with something, I try to develop a framework. Sometimes I call a way of thinking. Let us develop a way of thinking about something and put that in a grid and sift that through a grid. I think, it's important often to do that because, the greatest deception in life is self-deception. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times I would tell entrepreneurs on something important they're working on, something they're thinking through, spend the time to think it through and write it down on a piece of paper. And every morning before you go to work, read that piece of paper and understand what is it that's most important to you. It doesn't mean it can't change. Mm-hmm. It can change. We have to be flexible. Environments change, people change, situations change. And so we may have to alter that, but it's a conscious effort to go to that piece of paper, scratch that thing out, and write something else below it, right? When I work with leaders on a transaction, mm-hmm. I often sit down with them and spend the time to understand what's most important about that transaction. Is it to maximize wealth? Is it for the good of the people? Is it for the good of the customers? All these things are important. Mm-hmm. And write it down. Because halfway through the transaction, you will find out you've wandered very far away from the original piece of paper. Mm-hmm. And so these are the kind of frameworks that you work through and think about to help develop that skill set.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you can get that by having a really great mentor.
That's right.
Or at least a mentor who is potentially, has the skills to do that for you. Because I've worked with mentors where I don't ever want to work with them again. Right. Like I tell a lot of the people in the incubators and the accelerators and stuff, I say work with several. One person can give you bad advice that can hurt you for years. Yeah. Right? Yes. And so your talking about mentors is bringing back almost the beginning of our conversation about humility. Yeah. And it's almost like, I think, isn't there some sort of ingredient where the mentor needs to be have a certain perspective, but the founder needs humility to be able to take what you're trying to give them, right? Yeah. What have you been in situations where you're working with founders where they have no humility and you're just ready to say like, I'm going to strangle you, or how do you deal with a founder who's so, I don't want to say they're arrogant, but they're confident. They're just passionate. They're confident. They've got that IQ. They've got these things, and you want to help them, but you just can't.
Well, yes and no, Michael. At this stage in my life, my tagline is build into the lives of others. Similar to the Apostle Paul when he built into the life of Timothy, right? So build in the lives of others. And the single most important thing I spent the most time vetting out to decide whether I want to invest in this individual is that heart check. Is that heart check? Is humility. And if they don't have it, I can't help them. That doesn't mean they will not become wildly successful. That doesn't mean somebody else can't help them. It just means I can't help them.
Okay, I get it.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? There's many, many different ways. I know of one way that kind of works some of the time. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It's interesting, your line of question. I was just thinking as you were talking, Bob, we worked together for a lot of years, right? And obviously, we had a hierarchical relationship at work. I hope it never felt that way, but in the org chart, there was. Sure. But in those years, we played a lot of basketball. We played a lot of tennis. And on the tennis court And on a basketball course, I wasn't the boss. I was another player. And often I was the lesser talented of the players. Honest, okay? And we were teammates quite often, and we enjoy being teammates because we walked off the court having fun and laughed.
Absolutely.
You know, maybe you can share, right? In that, you know, what was that interaction like versus the other set of interaction?
Yeah.
Because it is a whole.
Yeah.
It is a whole, right? But that interaction in sports of us being teammates and the interaction.
Right.
Yeah, tell us about that, Pops.
You know, we didn't start off being friends. We started off as people who kind of liked each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I respected Tom's talents, and I was able to do some work, and he was happy with the work I did, and so on. But over time, I really wonder where the friendship actually blossomed. Did it blossom on the basketball court, on the tennis court, or or at work?
Uh-huh.
And a lot of it happened on a basketball court, I would say. And we just, but there's character that's shown on the basketball court.
Yeah.
I mean, there were people that you might even work with them at work, and maybe they worked too bad and so on. But on the basketball court, you didn't
Wow.
you didn't want to be around them. We had one person in particular.
Yeah.
We talked about Nick, and Nick was he was big basketball player and so on, and there was one player that would constantly have to make a little statement that, oh, you traveled on that trip.
Uh-huh.
You stepped wrong, you made you committed some kind of a foul and so on. And one day I remember Nick just looking at him, and he said, this person's name, I do not want to play lawyer ball anymore. And he threw the ball down, and that was that. But quite frankly, I think he ended up leaving the company. And I don't think it was ever really resolved where he said, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't have done that. But I think there were people who were on the court, there were people within the company and stuff who, if that had happened, would have, you know what? We have to go. Let's go sit down. Let's talk about this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be that guy either.
Do you think what you guys created at SDI was an anomaly? Like it just was a very lucky, fortunate thing? Or is it something you were able to reproduce in like your other company? Like sometimes it seems like you just happen to get the right things, but I don't know. I know you guys have done some other companies together, or you at least started or did some things. Is magic reproducible?
Yeah,
Wow.
Right.
That's a wonderful question, Michael.
Yeah.
It's funny you asked me this, in that we never actually talked about it. So, college dropout, accidental entrepreneur, started Software Dynamics. First product didn't work out. Second one took off. And we got 3 banks, 5 banks. I still remember 50 banks, the celebration for 50 banks and credit unions that used our product. And then 100, and it took off. And at the time when we sold the company, 19 and a half years later, we had 1,200 banks worldwide that used our software. And my leadership style developed over time, grew over time, these 23 years, but never formally. Never formally, because I wasn't really formally educated, right? And so after I sold the company, I agreed with the acquiring company, it was a public company, to stay for 2 years, and I stayed, and then I had another dream to chase, and so I went off to do something different, and not unusual in my life. I failed, and in the midst of that failure, I was asked by a very good friend if I would go down the street to a different company, and because they were scaling very, very quickly and they needed some help. So this company was Calabasas-based at the time, and the name of the company was Digital Insight. And they built internet banking software and very, very successful. And so I said, well, gosh, I don't know if I want to go work for somebody. And he said, please, Tom, come down here and help us out for a while, and he's such a dear friend. I said, okay, I'll come over as a consultant to help for a while. So I worked as a consultant for 6 months, and he and the CEO came and said, Tom, we really, really would like you to join the company. And suddenly, I ended up with 650 people working for me. And imagine, day 2, I sat in my office and I thought, oh, wow, I actually don't have a framework on how to lead these 650 people. It was actually horrifying to me because we had built SDI from 0 employees, to 250 employees, and we had a culture, and we built on a culture, got richer and richer. It was live and learn every day and grow, and so I went home that night and I said, look, I just can't wing it, okay? What worked? What worked? So I sat down, and for the next 2 days, I locked myself up in a room, and I created a framework that at the time, I call it Got Wow.
Got wow.
GOTWOW, Great Operating Team Way of Working. And I codified 5 things that was most successful during our SDI days. I try to bottle that magic up.
Yeah.
Okay? And so I put it down in short half sentences, 5 things, and I said, okay, this is what I'm gonna go with. This is what I'm gonna go with. And I introduced that to my leadership team that I had inherited from my predecessor, and I introduced that program to them. I still remember it. I had an offsite, strategic offsite at Westlake Village Inn, and we were in this conference room, and I introduced this Got Wow. And these fellas have been working together for a while, some for many years, looked at each other like, who is this idiot? What is he talking about? And this new concept, we have to work a new way? Well, you're always working pretty good, right? And they were under the table texting each other, wondering what in the world is going on. And later, some of them became my very best friends that told me the story. And after that, I took a break. I had my assistant come in with a hat with names in it. And so they said, well, what is this for? I said, I want each one of you C-level leaders working for me to pick a name out of the hat. Can't be your name, okay? We're gonna take a 15-minute break, and then we're gonna go in some order where you stand up, and I want you to tell me and the rest of us, what is this other person's job and what do they do and how they bring value to the company? And they looked at each other and they were horrified.
Yeah.
They're like, what? We know what we're doing. We don't know what the other guy's doing. That's not our job. Well, no, it actually is your job.
Yeah.
And I remember going through that session, and at the end of the day, people came up to me and said, okay, I got what you're saying now. We operate as silos, and we're really good at what we do. But we actually don't know what happens before, what happens after. In order for us to grow and scale and get better, we need to do that. And it was a great start. And I still remember one leader asked me at dinner quite loudly and said, Tom, there's 8 of us and we got 650 people reporting to us, to you, okay? It's going to take forever for your codified, these 5 principles got wild to work. Have to admit, I was a little stunned, and I looked at the individual, and I just have happened to have read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Tipping Point.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh no, we don't need that. You see, there's 8 of you, and I am asking you to become believers in this process. And each one of you, 8 of you, get 8 others on your team to become true believers in this. Now what do we have? Mm-hmm. We're going to change the company overnight because we're going to cascade that through the company. It will become a tipping point. Mm-hmm. It was a good thing I had just finished reading that book. But we did it.
Yeah.
We did it. We had an incredible exit with that company. Intuit bought it. Certainly, I was Johnny come lately.
Yeah.
There were lots that preceded me. The original founders, the CEO, was a fantastic business leader. I played a part in it. But that was my way of bottling. And then later, years later, I started another company called Maodzai. And I'll bore you with that story, is when I started Maodzai, it was 2 of us, 4 of us, 6 of us, 10 of us, 12 of us. And one day, we hired a young lady by the name of Amy Davis as customer support. And Amy Davis came in. 6 months later, she came to my office and she says, Tom, I want to tell you something. I love this company. This is so great. We do everything great except for one thing. I said, well, what's that? She says, onboarding. Onboarding sucks. Oh. Okay? But you know what? I want to volunteer to put a program together to onboard new employees. And I do that on my own time, in addition to the job that I'm doing, and so that I can help onboard every new employee to make that experience better. So I took my original Got Wow and I gave it to her. Oh. And she put a little committee of 5 people together, and she came back to me. She says, Tom, I hope you don't mind, but that Got Wow terminology, is not going to work for this generation of people we're hiring. Yeah. Those terms ain't going to work. Uh-huh. Okay? So they took that and they created the 10 efficient ways of a monkey.
Wow.
And they created that from outside, that they translated those 5 principles into 10 efficient ways in language of which the target candidate for coming in to bring value to the company could understand, right? So we took that original magic and then morphed it again.
Wow.
Right.
Do you still, I'm like intrigued. I know we don't have enough time to go through it all. I'm sure you have the whatever, but is it, you've codified it and is it somewhere? Is there sort of the Tom Shen, framework?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How do we find it? Where, is it like secret or is it, published somewhere? Or how do
it's
people,
not published anywhere.
How can we learn from it? How can we?
I'll give you a simple one. Every company, I don't think there's a company in this world that doesn't have a line in there somewhere about being ethical. Mm-hmm. Right? The problem is, right, there are things you need to do to be ethical, right? And so I paired that up. For example, the first principle is ethical but disciplined. But because if you're not disciplined, even if you wanted to be ethical, you can't be. So you pair these things out. Another principle is presumption of good intent. Okay, assume good intent first. Right. So one of them is passion for customers. We got to love our customers. Right. We got to love them. Right. Good enough is not good enough. Right, in today's marketplace. So I created these way of working as principles. We can do the wrong thing. Teammates can do the wrong things. I do the wrong things. Everybody does do the wrong things every now and again. But what does the heart matter? What's the principle? Are we violating the principle? If we're not, then it's an education issue, right? And for leaders, right, and why EQ is so important, right, is modeling. Is modeling, right? Is we model, and we show teammates what does good look like? What does ethical look like? We share these stories. Something very simple about being a servant leader. Now, there's probably less EAs in the world than there ever was because there's so much AI that can do your work for you.
Yeah.
But I lived in a world where we had executive assistants. And I would always ask my EA, when I go take a walk around the office, if I could bring a cup of coffee back to her. She's always getting me coffees, getting me lunches, making sure that I don't miss meetings. I can serve her as well. If I go out to lunch and she's busy, then I bring lunch back for her, right? This is part of being a servant leader and to model for your teammates.
And I get a sense, and I know it's true because what I know about you and everything, but you genuinely care about her enough that you want to bring, you're not saying, oh, there's a checkbox in my mind. If I go to lunch, I have to think about bringing some coffee back to somebody. Right? Like that's a there's a chasm there for some people.
But it's trainable.
It's trainable.
It's trainable.
Learn how to care about people.
Yeah, it's trainable.
Yeah. Learn
It's
how.
trainable.
Yeah.
I experienced that. I'm just a tech guy and everything, but I had, at some point or another, I had a group under me, somewhere varying from maybe 8 to 12 at a time and so on. And I would just, it wasn't because it was in my DNA, but it was just so natural, and I would get up, and I would walk from office to office and so on. Sometimes I'd bring the spray bottle so I could clean the screens of the guys because while I'm checking in with them, how's things going, how's the software and so on. I was thinking that unlike Tom, I couldn't say, that I knew every member of their family and so on, but I did. I knew those people pretty well.
Genuinely cared enough about. You weren't like sneaking, like I have an ulterior motive. I'm going to pretend I care about what's going on, but I need to see. Are we going to deliver?
Really just trying to see how he's working and so on.
Did you have to try to learn how to care about them because you know what I mean? Like it's a stage.
Yeah, I think what happened is that I absorbed it from what I saw.
Yeah. Modeled.
And it wasn't like I sat there and said, oh, Tom did this, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
It was just, well, I guess that's how you run a team. I guess that's how you manage.
It's like he modeled it, you absorbed it, and when you didn't know what to do, you were like, I'm going to do what I've seen.
Sure.
And did it work? Were you ever surprised where you were like, oh my gosh, that was so cool?
Well, it is cool, and the thing is that over time, and it did start that way, but the individuals in the group and so on, I mean, I have to say, I love those guys.
Yeah.
And gals.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, yeah.
Okay.
It's developed just a connection.
That's
that you
awesome.
Just can't say anything else
That's
about
awesome. Okay, I know we're going forever, but I got to try and land the plane. There's two ways that I land the plane. One is we just got to get concrete, a couple concrete things that we can just leave them with to go. But as you're thinking about that, I want you to also think about this, like basketball, tennis, golf, sports played such a huge role in your friendship and in the companies and everything like that. Is that potentially something like all startups and companies and small teams really should just embrace sports more? Like, is it, or was it sort of just a unique thing because you're a sports person? Is it something where we could say, hey, you know what, get the team out, go play basketball? Like, is that a real thing, or was it really just?
I don't know if we could just artificially make that happen. I think it would be more like if you're at work and so on, and you said to a couple of people, hey, you want to play some 2-on-2? I go down to the park there and just get some exercise, and then have it grow from there. People will say, well, wait a minute,
Find out,
going down to the park? I want to go down to the park.
Yeah. Find out what people are interested in. Don't put it on them. You didn't put basketball on the people, no, you didn't. You just revealed
Not
that
much.
Not much.
Unless there was an uneven number.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Wait, was there anybody who didn't play basketball who ended up maybe not staying in the company? Was there any of that? Like, hey, this guy.
Who weren't ball players.
Yeah, we had guys and gals. We had gals come out and play. Yeah.
But we had some guys.
Nobody got fired because they wouldn't play.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was one guy, he missed the shot. And
When he came back to the
really
office,
important shot.
all of his stuff was in a box on his desk when he came back.
Not true.
Yeah, that's funny.
Oh man. Well, okay. So both of you, if you can think about it, I really like to leave them with a couple concrete things, and having played the different roles and the experiences you've had, and I we could spend hours just digging deep into this stuff, but maybe a couple concrete things you can leave.
Tom, Tom has a lot to say. I don't learn much as a businessman or anything else like that, but I do remember one thing, and that is I worked for two different companies, SDI being the second, and another company before that was working in virtually the same field and so on. The attitude when we went to build something, this seems to be like something that everybody knows this is the way it's supposed to be because you're strong and smart and aggressive people and so on. And so when you go in to design something, you go into that room, there's going to be fights. There's going to be, things like you just really have to duke it out and figure out, who wins and whose idea comes up first. And that's what I'd seen before. Now, Tom will probably remember this. When I was in for the interview with Tom, there was a point at which I said to him, Tom, I've seen it done wrong, and I want to do it right. And that was so exciting to me. Well, it came to a point where I was blessed to be able to be on a team where we were starting from blank paper. And we didn't know. We went into a room every day in a conference room, and we didn't know if we were going to be in there for 3 days or 6 weeks. And it turned out it went pretty long. I mean, it probably was three good solid weeks and so on. What we came out of it with was like an overview of exactly the product we wanted to build and so on. And to this day, you could look at that overview, and it kind of is generally about what things should be. But the interesting thing is, we never had a fight in that room. There was no tension. What would happen is, this is how I'd present things. I'd say, okay, we need to figure out how we're going to handle this particular subject. And let's talk about it. And so, somebody says this, somebody says that, somebody says that. And when it was done, I would say, okay, look, the way I see it, we've got A, we got B, and we got C, okay? And A has, I see some good advantages to A, some for B, some for C. We're going to go with C. And that was it. Write it down. And we actually
Wait,
had
who decided
I decided.
You, okay. Got it.
experience and for hearing what the other people
Okay,
had said.
got it,
They
got it.
convinced me that C was the right thing. And I didn't expect that we were going to get them all right.
Yeah.
But I can tell you something. We could have spent another 6 months, and we would have still not been sure we'd get it all right. And we had in the room with us. That was the other thing. We had a tech writer in the room. That young lady would write down things, and one of the things was, alternative 1, alternative 2, alternative 3. Here's what we chose, and here's why we chose it, and that's it.
Wow.
And so the people who might have championed alternative A or championed alternative B, they just
They were on board.
Yeah, they were on board because we get it. You heard me.
Yeah.
You heard my ideas. You heard what I had to say about it. But somebody had to make a decision, so we made a decision.
Yeah.
And
that clarity is so important.
And so when we were done, we had it written down.
So if I could summarize what you're saying is not just that you didn't go in and fight, like you did discuss and maybe, try and argue whatever, but at some point everyone agreed that there was going to be a decision made and you were the person who was going to make the decision.
Right.
Like this clarity of, our team.
Yeah.
And that was really important to you. And
I would say there wasn't very much arguing. That's the thing that amazed me about the whole experience.
but you didn't go in and go, this is how it's going to be done and this and this and this. You really built.
Most of the time I was just learning.
Yeah.
So this thing needs to be handled. What do you think? How do we do this?
Yeah.
And there were some brilliant minds in there.
Yeah. And do you think that was like you found what you were missing at these past companies where you said, they did it wrong, I want to do it right, and you feel like, you're like, we did it. We did it right.
Exactly right. And that,
Really? Okay, all right. What do you think?
I love the employees. I love the product.
Yeah.
It's my baby.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And I mean, in a lot of ways, you always, when we're talking about it, you always set yourself up as the supporting actor. But in a lot of ways, you are so entrepreneurial. Like really, we talk about things and you've inspired me to be an entrepreneur in many, many ways. You've given me horrible, horrible advice and I've gone way down and failed horribly in lots of different ways. But at least we got that side of the entrepreneurship piece out of the way with you. Lucky I have a mom. She's got the other side, so that was good. But in general, I think as a supporting actor, I think it's just so critical to be entrepreneurial in a company as well, But all right, land the plane, Tom. You got a couple of concrete things you could share around entrepreneurship and building valuable companies.
If I was to pick a couple, I'll take a poke at it. As you know, we didn't prepare.
Yeah.
This is not scripted. I think if I was to say two things, I say number one is fun. You, as the entrepreneur, have to have fun. I often say when I look back on my career, and I'm an old fella and I've worked a lot of years, but I might have really worked 6 months. The rest of the time I had fun. And fun is sustainable. If it's fun, you keep doing it and you keep doing it and you keep trying to get better at it. And fun, you can create an environment that's fun for others, right? So have fun in what you're doing. If you're not having fun, go do something else. For your sake, for others' sake, go do something else. For your own family's sake, go do something else. Right. Have fun. That's number one, right? Ask yourself, are you having fun? I think number two strikes the heart of everything we do. And I use this word deliberately, which is delight. We, I believe, have a responsibility to create delighted customers, not happy customers. Happy customer is not good enough. Happy customer, if you give them a 50% discount coupon, will go down to the store down the street. That's a happy customer. A delighted customer would drive 30 minutes out of the way to come to see you. Delight is such an incredible, powerful thing. And for those that are watching this video, for everyone walking around, we all know what delight is because we are all entrepreneurs. We're all consumers ourselves. And as a consumer, we know what delights us. And the three powerful things about delight, right, is number one, right? If you're delighted with this solution, you will use it. Simple. Number two, if you're delighted with the solution, you will grab your friends, your family, people by the lapel and say, you must use this, right? And you know what the third thing is? A delighted customer will pay full price. You have economic power because you've delighted your customer. They will pay full price. They're not gonna come asking for a discount. So fun, delight. If you create a company, if you build a solution in an environment that's fun, that delights customers, you will get the right outcome. Whatever your true north is when you first wrote down that you want to accomplish, you will get there.
I love it. I cannot thank you enough. I feel so special that I get to have these interviews and I get to learn so much. I'm just absorbing it all, and I love it. So thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate it so much.
Absolutely, delightful.
Bob, I love it too. I love you so much. Thank you so much too. And so, all right, well, that's a wrap, guys.